recording here. Uh, yeah, so again, just full audible here today. I just got to the line of scrimmage and said, let's do something else. So this will be good. Let's get this out of the way on this gorgeous Thursday. So what we're going to talk about today is the 2nd of November, eh? Woo-yee. That means it's going to be Thanksgiving soon. And then you know what comes after Thanksgiving? Uh-huh. And you know what happens around Christmas? Yeah, you get a couple weeks off. Sweet. Anyways, today is the 2nd, and we're just going to talk about slope today. And I'll give you an assignment. And again, it's on paper, which I know is on Mr. Aherney, but now that the internet's working, I will post a PDF up for the absent folks and hope that they would take care of it at home. So anyways, yeah, let's talk about this. Let's get into this quick. I never know how much to say about this. I almost feel like with slope, the more you say, the more likely people are going to mess it up. So again, slope is a number. And I said this a few minutes ago. What it is it's the number that defines how a line behaves. So if the line looks like this, and we're not going to graph any lines like legit, like real graphing lines today. But if you were to graph a line and it went like this, or if it went like this, or if it went like this, what do those lines, other than the fact that they're all red, what do those lines all have in common? They all go uphill. And that's going to be an issue for us, is that we must start defining our math from left to right. There's always going to be that person who says, well, couldn't they go downhill? No. Math is defined from negatives to positives. So as I move from left to right, you have to agree that on all those lines, we're traveling up a hill, right? Some of them, a couple are steeper than one. That's okay. The bottom line is they all go uphill. So these slopes are all going to be positive numbers. That could mean like 2/3, 1, 3/4, 5/8, 7/3. I don't know. As long as it's positive, then it will match a line that looks like that. And then, of course, we've also got lines that go like this. And again, you know where I'm headed with this. These lines, some of them are more severe than others, but what do they all share as a characteristic? They all go downhill. And when lines travel downhill from left to right, then their slopes must be negative numbers, right? Now, there are two other kinds of, when I say line, I'm always referring, by the way, to a straight line. As soon as we start making our lines not straight, we can't call them lines anymore. That'll happen in like April. We'll start calling them curves, okay? And because I heard someone back there say that they're all straight, and that's actually a legit observation. But everything we do for the next however long are going to be straight lines. So we can not worry about that. What are the other two types of lines that haven't been mentioned yet? No, I'm not talking about lines in pairs, because yes, there could be two lines that travel parallel to each other, but we're not going to discuss multiple lines at the same time. What are two other types of lines that are not yet on the board? And good. Again, we're not talking about curve. They are not called lines. I'm going to say that again. They are not called lines if they curve, called curves. So here are the other two types of lines. One of them is horizontal. And lines don't have to go uphill, and lines don't have to go downhill. Lines can go straight across, flat line like that. Does anyone happen to know what the slope of a horizontal is? It is. It's the number 0. And I know that Mr. Manlove, if you've done this in his 8th grade class, he has you spell it out, Z-E-R-O. He and I have had this discussion before. I'd much prefer if you just write the number 0. Okay? No. Nope. Just a 0 is great. Okay? Do you have a hand over there, Brenda? No. Oh, okay. You'll be amazed over the next couple of weeks how often I yell at people for this. And it's, try to do it in a loving way, but you got to memorize the things on the board. And there's a 4th type of line, and what is it? It is. So lines don't have to go uphill or downhill or flat. Lines can also travel vertically like this. Does anyone happen to know what the slope of one of those is? There is no slope. And what we mean by that is not 0. Sometimes in life, if the box of donuts is empty, one person might say, oh, there's 0 donuts. And another person might say, oh, there's no donuts. you can't use that English when it comes to math. When we say no slope, it does not mean zero. All right, that's already taken. No slope means there is no numerical way to represent the slope of a vertical line for reasons that you'll understand, if not today, very soon. You can also write undefined. My issue with undefined is I've seen people, and I'm sorry that I have to bring this up, but I've seen spellings like this. Listen, I could keep going for probably another couple of minutes, and I don't want to. My take is that if you're willing to use the word undefined, it's a perfectly good alternative to no slope. It's what I usually say is undefined, but please take the time to spell it right. And if you think about it, it makes sense. The word, if something has a definition, then the word has been defined, right? D-E, like anyone past fourth grade should know how to spell the word define. And so if something cannot be defined, then we say that it's undefined. So yes, undefined is also another way to say no slope, if you're willing to take the time to not butcher the language of it. So having said that, I mean, we're going to get into now the math of this, and I think the math should be relatively straightforward. You guys have proven this year that you're pretty solid on learning math, so hopefully this goes well. It shouldn't take too long. Is homeboy sleeping over there? Yeah. Can you go ahead and take care of that for me there, Brenda? So far we've learned that there are 4 types of straight lines, and no matter how obstinate or stubborn you want to be, there is nothing else that a straight line can do. It will either go uphill or downhill or flat or vertical. There's nothing else it can do. So all slopes, bless you, and again, all slopes fall into one of those 4 categories. We agree? Okay, so there are 2 ways to find slope, and I'm going to get into those now. The first way to find slope is by using a graph. And whenever someone provides you with a graph, that's always very nice. And this part will be a little bit harder for you to take notes on, but you can just sketch it. I have the benefit of having this digital graph paper up here, but you can just make a sketch. It's okay. I'm going to go ahead and assume at this point that you guys know how to graph points, but I better check on you. So let's say I gave you a point like -2, 1. By the way, for the next couple of weeks, I'm going to really need you to only use the word over if you're talking about a fraction. Like if you get 5/8 and want to call it 5/8, that's okay. But we don't ever define going sideways as over. And I know that Cruz fixed it by saying over to the blah, but you can leave that. We're going to use 4 words to describe. We're going to use the words up, down, left, and right. If I told someone on the graph to go over to, why is that confusing for them? They don't know what I mean, right? And I would not choose this battle if it were not an issue that had caused thousands of lost points in my career. So get away, train yourself today and next week, train yourself out of saying go over 2 and up 3 or something like that, because over is ambiguous and you want to be tight. So using only the words up, down, left, or right, how would you describe to me how to get to the point -2, 1? Good. Left 2 because the x coordinate of my point is -2. Up 1 because the vertical, the y coordinate, is +1. So that point, we would get there by going left 2 and up 1. How about this point? I will, and again, I will be all over you like white on rice. I will coach this out of you if you say over. So where do we go? Right 4, down 3. And you don't even have to say negative. If you say down, then you take care of the negativity part. So if we use the words up, down, left, and right, we will never be confused. So we're going to go right 4. And we always go back, by the way, of course, to the origin, right? So I go back to the origin and I go right, kind of follow my pen here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, and then down from there, 1, 2, 3, and place a dot. So your problems on today's homework assignment come in two parts, two flavors. And flavor number one is where you actually are given some numbers like over on the left side of the TV, and you graph the points and then find the slope of the line that would go between them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my ruler tool here, and I'm going to make a line. I better undo that. That was pretty bad there. Let's see. So much better. So what you do on the assignment is you'll grab a ruler. You don't do it right now because it would waste a lot of time, but you make a line between the points. And now let's go back to the beginning of today's lesson. Is that line a positive, negative, zero, or undefined slope? It is a negative slope. Does anyone in this room know how to find the actual slope when I give you a line like this? What do we do, Braxton?
Go to the right a lot. So from the first point, you go right.
Now, actually, I'm going to do that backwards of what you said. I'm going to go back to something Cruz said about 10 minutes ago. And I know that you all have heard this expression before, whether you remember it or not. This has been in your life before. Slope is defined as rise over run. And again, I said the word over because it's a fraction, okay? Rise over run. And what that means is we're going to build a staircase. But when we build our staircase, we have to make sure that we do our vertical first and our horizontal second. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight a couple of points on my graph like this one and this one, right? Because they're the ones I started with, so why not? And what I'm going to do is make a journey from one point to the other. And so I like to start, this is me, at the point that's further to the left. That's this guy over here. So if I was going to travel from him to his homie down here, the guy with the green arrow, I hope you agree, I would follow this pattern. I would go 1, 2, 3, 4. And would you agree that I am now in line with the other point? Good. So I say that my rise is 4, and you don't have to call it -4. It's okay. We'll take care of this in a sec. So the rise is 4. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the corner and I'm going to head straight horizontal across to get to his homie. So follow the pen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we say that the run is 6. Now, in order to be successful with slope, there are two things you have to do. Number one is you always have to reduce your fractions. And number two is you don't want to get outsmarted by a simple math problem by saying something stupid. I'm not supposed to say that, but I'm going to say it again on recording. Don't say something stupid like 2/3. What's wrong with the answer 2/3? Yes, that's a positive slope. And I know from using my, eyeballs that this line goes downhill. So I just slap a negative, call it a day. So that's how you find the slope of a line. It's a very simple process. All you have to know how to do is reduce a fraction and count. All right, let's practice again. Let's do these points. I'll write them up here in, I don't know, I'll do purple this time. Let's do -2, -3. You can put it on the same graph. It's totally up to you. I'm going to cheat and just use this because it's a pain to erase it and start over. I'm just being lazy, I guess. And then let's do 0. I don't know. Let's do 5. So again, please, using very particular words, could you describe to me how to get to the point -2, -3? And yeah, and again, you don't even have to say down negative. You can just say down 3 because I know where to go. If you just say down, I got it covered, right? So let's go left 2 and down 3. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and make a dot. And then how do I get to the point 0, 5? Yeah, you just go up 5, right? So like you don't go right or left at all, do you? You stay on the y-axis and go up 5. Good. So I'm going to start back at the origin and head up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in looking at this, so before we say anything stupid, and again, I'm going to use that word And I'm not going to feel guilty about it. Before we say anything stupid, what can we already say is true about the slope of this line? It's positive, and I have to police myself. I'm the only one that can get in my own way and say, hey, dude, don't do something stupid. So like I go into it and say, if I put a negative answer, I better smack myself and erase that negative because that line clearly goes up, right? So again, what we're going to do is we're going to highlight a couple of points. And I usually use the ones I started with. What the heck, right? So there's my first point and there's my second point. They're the big yellow dots up there, right? So let's count out the rise and the run. So starting down at the point to the left, I count up and I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We agree? So the top of my slope fraction is 8. And then I'm going to turn from that point and head to the east. You always want to get in line so you don't have to go crooked. You go straight up or down and you go straight right or left. And then when I turn the corner, how far was my run? And what is 8 over 2? That could be simplified, right? It is 4. And you don't even have to say 4 over 1. The slope of a line can be a whole number like this, 4. Good?
Is there?
No, it's just actually a number. It's a number that describes how a line behaves. If it's positive, it's increasing. If it's negative, it's decreasing. And then the size of the number just tells us how steep we are. That's all. Right? What would you say? Oh, see, that's what happens when I eat a little dog, little turkey butt. Oh, yeah. Pow, take that. What would you say about these 2 points? How about 4, 2, and 4, negative 3? How do I get to the point 4, 2? Good job. And then you make a dot. And then you go back to the origin and reset. How do you get to the point 4, negative 3?
Go down to.
Yes, always remember, bless you, that this number is your X and this number is your Y. And just like the alphabet, when we do points, X goes before Y. So we don't want to start by going down 3 or left 3 or whatever. We want to go right 4 and down 3. Okay, so right 1, 2, 3, 4, down 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to go ahead and graph the line through these, but if you've been here and paying attention, you probably already know that I don't need a math degree for this. What's the slope of this line? Good job, you guys. There is no slope. And if that's not an option, like if you were doing multiple choice and you're like, how come I can't find that? What else might it say? Undefined, right? And then, of course, the last part of this is you know exactly where this is headed. What haven't we talked about yet? Horizontal. And you'll learn to recognize the patterns. Like you'll learn to just see the numbers and already know what it is. So watch for the pattern in the numbers that I write here. So let's do like -5, 3. And then let's do, how about 4, 3. What do you notice about my 2 points that I chose? The Y's are the same. And if you think about that, that's pretty cool because that means that I'm going to go up the same amount to get to each point, which I think you know what I mean. That's got to give us a conclusion. So if I go left 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 1, 2, 3, make a dot. And then I go right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 3, make a dot. I'm going to graph the line just to make this a complete project, but what kind of slope is that? Good. And again, I know some of you have been coached to spell this word out. It drives me up the wall. The slope is just 0, the number 0. Okay, it's not 0 over anything, it's just 0. Are you guys comfortable with that? Okay, so that's how you find the slope of a line if you have a graph. There's also, I'm going to take my graph paper off now. I'm going to get rid of my background because now we're going to do slope when we don't have a graph to go by. And you guys might remember this formula. This formula, man, is bugaboo. It should be so easy. And I struggle with this. I have to take the blame for this because for every one of my years so far, slope has been an issue. And I think to myself, is it me? I should call some random math teacher in like Milwaukee. Say, like, hey, do you struggle with slope in your kids? I don't know what it is. So here's the way these problems are going to look. I'm going to give you just points this time, but no graph. And the first point will be something like 4, 3. And the second point will be 7, 5. Now, if we had graph paper, we could just graph them and do it like we just did it. But we're learning this part of the lesson as if we're not going to graph it. We're just going to do math. So for those of you who've never seen the slope formula before, this is x1. We call it that because it's the first x. The 3 is obviously the y, 1, because it's, well, the first y. And then the 7 is the second x, so he's x2. And the 5 is the second y, so he's y2. So again, I say I don't think you need a math degree for this. You just need to be able to put those numbers into the handy-dandy little formula up here in the big white box. So who is y2? y2 is 5. It's okay. And then I'm going to put minus. And what is y1? Good. So I do 5 minus 3, and don't worry about what that equals yet. Let's go over now. What is x2? And what is x1? So if you can perform basic operations, you can find the slope of the line. On top, what's 5 minus 3?
2.
What is 7 minus 4?
3.
So the slope of the line through those points would be 2/3. Now, you think, gosh, how could anyone mess this up? Yeah, you and me both. So let's make it a little bit harder. Same thing, we're going to do the slope formula. We're not going to use a graph for this, and we're going to find the slope of the line. So here are your points. -4, 5, 2, 8. This is where it happens. And if you're like, Sir sleeps a lot over there, you probably should wake back up because this is a great time to hear me out. The formula never changes. The formula doesn't care. The formula doesn't mind what day of the week it is. It's going to do what it does every time. So let's, on the top of our fraction, do y2 minus y1. What is y2? Minus what is y1? All right, no issues there. On the bottom, what is x2? And then always put minus. I'm going to say that again because I know 7 of you need me to say it again. Always put the minus. Say it again. Always put the minus before you put the number. Always put the minus. Now, what is x1? And in math, what happens when a pre-existing minus and a negative come up and touch butts? They actually don't become a positive. They become a plus. And a plus is different. A plus is a verb. So they form a plus sign. Now, what is 8 minus 5? What is 2 plus 4? What is the slope of this line? 1/2. We've reduced it like a fraction. So far, so good? Does that seem like something that high school people should mess up? Well, I'm not above mess ups, but you'd be surprised how often this is going to become an issue. So try not to let it be you. It's really not hard math. It's just easy to mess up for some weird reason. So let's go again. Let's do -3, -1, -3, 4. All right, what's y2 minus y1 going to look like? What's y2? And then always put the minus before you look at the next number. Now, what is y1? Now, watch what I do. I'm going to put, watch the pen, -1. Do you see what I did? I knew there was already a minus because I followed directions. And then after that, I put a negative, and the minus and the negative touch butts, cross up, and make a plus. Now, let's do the bottom. What is x2? And then always put the minus. And what is x1? Watch the pen again. -3. I use the negative to cross the minus that was going to be sitting in front of him. Let's do some math. What's 4 plus 1? What is -3 plus 3? When this happens, does anyone know what the slope of the line is? There is no slope. So those of you taking notes, which I have to assume is literally every single one of you, put this in your notes right now. When 0 is on the bottom of your slope fraction like this, there is no slope. Or remember, like Ms. Roscoe said, if you prefer, you can write undefined. Okay. When 0 is on the bottom, what's the slope? No slope. Right. And let's do one more, and then I'm going to let you have some work time today. You just kind of learn as you go. You'll be fine. So let's do -1, 5, and 2, 5. Have faith. The formula does not care. The formula has no emotions. The formula doesn't judge. You don't mess it up. It won't ever treat you bad. What is y2? Good. And then always put your minus. And what's y1? Okay. Let's head downstairs. Don't do any math before you finish the job. Like, get in there and put all your numbers and then go back and worry about the math. On the bottom, what's x2? Always put your minus. And what is x1? So again, what am I going to write? +1, because that negative is going to cause my minus to switch. If the second number is negative, it switches to plus. What's 5 minus 5? What's 2 plus 1? What is the slope of this line? It is 0. So let's add this to our notes, and then I'm going to get out of your way. When you do your slope formula, your mathy kind, and zeros on the top, the slope of the line is 0. So 0's on the bottom, what's the slope? No slope, undefined. 0's on the top, what's the slope? Twice. All right, I'm gonna hand out the worksheet and we'll get crack-a-lacking on it. I'm gonna hand out, but then I'm gonna give you some directions, okay? But I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording here. So I'm sorry, what?